think that that takes us right into the title fight. I mean, Michael Chandler is going to get criticized by a lot of people for the, one fight UFC win, one fight title shot. But you got to look at a guy like Khabib, who was able to retire the way he did after putting up the numbers that he did and be able to kind of still question being the GOAT. Maybe that's what fighting is nowadays, right? Maybe it's the quality over quantity. And maybe if he's able to string together a couple good defenses in a division that's just so hungry and full of fighters that want a piece, I mean, who's to say that he doesn't jump into that category in a good 2-3 year span, right? That's where I kind of give Michael Chandler a bit of credit. But again, we talk about the Pitbull losses. The Benson Henderson win for me was one of the easiest bets of my entire life. I try not to bet on absolutely everything on the planet, but in that one, it's just like you have to assume Benson was on the tail end, whereas Chandler's looking to come back pretty strongly. And I think that that's where, this is a great setup for him to kind of finally get into the UFC, live out that dream of his, get onto the poster, like he said. He's been dreaming about being on a UFC poster, things like that. So that's where I'm really, really excited for him. I think that this is going to be a fight where everything gets to go his way. He's older, got an adopted son. Like, this is all things that I love to just see. Like, how can you not want to see a guy like this succeed, right? Doing all the right things, clean living. I love the guy. But now we're going to be talking about a guy like Charles Oliveira, who, I was literally in my early 20s when I first saw this man fight. And one thing you'll learn about me if you pay attention to me for the foreseeable future is I'll always love these classic style BJJ guys with some good, who try to learn the wrestling but have good striking that they learn over the course of 5 to 10 years. But it just makes such complete fighters, and they make them really exciting on the ground. And there's something about being exciting on the feet and on the ground that I just absolutely love. For me, a submission is interchangeable, if not sometimes even nicer than a knockout, because I think a knockout can be a lot less technical than a submission, depending on how irresponsible the fighter that's getting submitted really is. But that's where it looks pretty no matter what. In this case, he's going to be trying to look to get that fight to the ground a little bit. The one thing about Charles Oliveira is we've seen him be chinny, man. And I think that one thing that Michael Chandler's proving is with that wrestling, with that athleticism comes good knockout power, man. I think that he's been able to show on multiple levels that he's a complete fighter, man, and that wrestling is truly on a next level. We know that Kamaru Usman is actually pretty crazy with his, and that hella popular video of them rolling together is something to marvel, right? Like that's two guys just flowing really well in wrestling, and you can just see the technical skill and the athleticism on both guys. I'm really excited for that side of things, because for me, one matchup you'll always see me, I was a big Matthews fan, so the wrestling base, I'm a big believer that the wrestling base is unbiasedly the way to go. But I love the clash of American wrestling and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, because it goes to show you how good someone's wrestling defense is against, say, the American wrestling style, but then also how good a guy's Jiu-Jitsu is once he gets the fight to the ground, because wrestling's all about managing that top game. But then the Jiu-Jitsu game is all about, finding ways to succeed from the bottom, get yourself out of harm's way. That's where we're seeing two guys who are so damn good at both. So if you're telling me that I'm going to get to watch 5 rounds of these guys not throw a single punch, but then watch this BJJ versus, American wrestling showdown at this level for a lightweight title in the UFC, sign me up. I'll sign twice fight night. Please print here, sign here, date it down all day long. I think that's going to be my dream fight if it goes down that way. But if I'm Michael Chandler and I'm getting that good at striking on the feet, I've seen where Charles Oliveira might have some holes in his game as well. Sanford MMA, right? Henry Hooft. This is a kickboxing, kickboxing legend gym, kickboxing legend coach. And I think that's where you're going to see that evolution of a lot of fighters, right? Brendan Allen looked a lot better in his last fight, getting back to that confident style fighting. And I think that you're seeing a lot of fighters who are coming out of that gym right now just become a lot better. And it's not just in the striking, but it's just a complete, like the athlete. We just talked about that at Extreme Couture, but Sanford MMA is on a new level with that. Rory McDonald looked absolutely phenomenal against Curtis Millender in his PFL fight. So great things are coming out of that gym as well. And you have to kind of give Michael Chandler that same credit, because his striking against, Dan Hooker, who does leave himself open, who wasn't even finished by Dustin Poirier, got absolutely destroyed by that punch. And that's dropping any human on the planet, right? Like, that's the whole point there. So there's nothing against Dan Hooker, but it's just all the power to Michael Chandler for having strikes like that. So where do I see Charles Oliveira having some serious issues, man? If Michael Chandler's dropping guys like that, And Charles Oliveira is not coming in very responsibly on the feet with his hands up and his head movement and footwork, rolling with punches like an absolute boxer. Pure, like that's what you need to go into this fight as. If Charles Oliveira spent any time Brazilian jiu-jitsu, grappling, things like that, that's a waste of time at this point. I'm looking at that Hooker fight and know that I'm taking on a beast of an athlete who's got footwork for days and knockout power that can pretty much put anyone to sleep. For me, that's the biggest scare. As a massive, massive biased Charles Oliveira fan, I'm hella scared that this man gets dropped early because we've seen him not stay disciplined for 3 rounds. And in this case now, as a championship caliber fight for 5 rounds, he just has to last, man. And I think that if he takes those big blows the way Michael Chandler should throw them, it's going to make this an early fight for him. But like I said, if this fight goes to the ground and I get to watch the American wrestler versus the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu fighter at this level for a UFC lightweight title, I am thanking the MMA gods for such a wonderful gift. And I hope you guys enjoy it too. If it goes that way, don't hate me for saying that or praying for it, whatever it is. I think that Charles Oliveira has a lot to prove in the striking department in this fight. It's getting better without question, but I'm sorry. From what I saw from Michael Chandler, like there's not much more you can say than the fact that he looked incredible. I think the footwork, the placement, the efficiency, the power, it's the most perfect thrown punch that we've seen in a long time at that level of a fight, right? So yeah, as a big time Charles Oliveira fan, you can say I'm quite scared. I'm actually severely scared of how this fight's going to go. But again, we know where Charles can have success. The grappling opportunities will be there if he's able to withstand some of those power shots. And again, that body of work in the UFC, there's very, very few fighters that are even coming close to what he's accomplished. And that's what I like the most about the things he's done. I think that he has all of that culminating into one of the biggest, title fights of his career. One of the biggest fights of his career in a title fight against Michael Chandler. If he pulls this off at UFC 262, such a big card with so much riding on it, especially at the 155 weight class. I've been looking at quickly looking at his losses. Paul Felder 2017 was the last one. Ground and pound. Paul Felder's a beast, right? Ricardo Lamas, Anthony Pettis, Max Holloway. I mean, those are the recent losses in terms of UFC fights, and I'm gonna cry. I'm in love with the man. But yeah, I mean, it's the reason why I love the style that I do. He is the reason. I love those guys that can just take the beating and go for that jiu-jitsu, and it's heart, man. It's all heart, skill, and mindset. And these guys just have the cardio. They have the ability to just do some real big damage from the back, and even when they're taking big blows. And it's just something that's the hardest thing to do, in my opinion. And that's where I'm excited to see what this wrestling showdown can do. Now, enough of me ranting. I feel like I'm now ranting. Let's take a look at the lines. Oh my. Wow. Okay. So Charles Oliveira opens up as a minus 163 favorite. Is that surprising to me? Yes. I think that Michael Chandler has actually done enough overall as a fighter to merit being somewhat closer, if not a pick 'em. Plus 130 moving to a plus 105 now. I mean, I can get on board with that. That's pretty much my point here with Michael Chandler. I think that when you analyze him as a fighter, quality over quantity, right? You have to tell yourself from an unbiased perspective for Charles Oliveira, this is a fight where he's just done enough over the course of his entire 20 years of living. That decade of 20 years of living. He's put together now enough of a streak of wins since 2017 to merit that title shot. So that's where I think that the work has finally paid off. I do think this is going to be the hardest fight of his career because he's now taking on what we've called a bigger athlete, right? A guy like Tony Ferguson that he was able to dominate absolutely got dummied by a wonderful athlete like Justin Gaethje. That's where I'm seeing that the athlete is starting to take over in MMA. And that's where guys like Ferguson and Charles Oliveira, who are give me damage, and I will withstand that and come out with a win, are becoming very, very, very hard to back from a smart fan perspective, because I just think that these guys are dying breed because there's smarter ways to fight. There's just smarter ways to fight, and you saw that in Michael Chandler. What Michael Chandler is doing in his fights is he's just the smarter fighter. And in this case, for him to be a plus 130 dog to me is kind of insulting. Seeing him move up to that plus 100, plus 110 range is a lot more respectable. I think this closes as a pick'em. I don't see any reason why it shouldn't. And I mean, we're going through the fights. We pretty much said half of these should close as a pick'em. I think that it's fair to see where the line movement is going. Fans obviously jumped on the lines pretty quickly to get these moving. I completely agree with every single line movement on this fight card. So that tells me that across the board, close fights, fun fights. I gave you a couple things that I'm leaning towards in terms of, value picks. You got the Vivian Araujo at that plus 140 opening, now moving to a plus 110. I mean, if you're enjoying that value, I would hop on it. And then you have the Anthony Shevchenko's, open at a minus 190, now coming down to a minus 130. You're seeing that Andrea Lee's getting a bit more bump. I don't think that's a bettable fight, but I was just pointing out how Shevchenko opened up at such a big favorite and is now coming back down to even money. But Gina Mazzani struggling against big-time strikers, and Priscilla Cacheda having, that zombie girl style of pushing forward. I mean, something to explore, another dog that you might want to consider. But, for final picks, don't forget to check out my Instagram page, SookyMMA. We'll have all the fight picks up by Saturday. I like to watch the wins. I like to get in my Zen mode to figure out what I'd like to take. That's definitely just the pick 'em. If you want any betting advice, by all means, send me some DMs. I wouldn't mind chatting about it. I love all that kind of stuff. But, as always, like, subscribe, hit that bell for notifications. We got plenty of MMA and UFC content going up, so stay tuned for more. Always a pleasure. Peace.